Well, I read a lot of fiction. My favorite reading is history, and actually, I read a lot of fiction. I read a lot of Faulkner. I read a lot of Fitzgerald. I read The Sun Also Rises. It's a wonderful story about Jake and Lady Brett. And of course, I read recently this summer, I read Farewell to Arms. And I reread it. And you get something more out of really good literature every time you read it. I read a lot of Naipaul. Over the years, I've read a lot of Naipaul. I thought Naipaul probably got international terrorism. He was one of the first people to write in a literary fashion about international terrorism, and I suppose he's still perplexed by it. I guess I am too. But of course, my old friend Norman Mailer here, he when he was writing this book, I was taking out a perfectly, there you are, he signed the book. But he had just finished it up, and he was taking out I was taking out a very charming Oriental American, and I took her to a party at with Taki Theodorakopoulos, and Norman was there, and I introduced her as a number 3 person in CIA, something like that, and he talked to her all evening long, and I don't know if he ever did get the idea that she was just a banker, but she looked like Norman's idea of a spy. Generally, I start my day with the newspapers, and I read 3 to 4 newspapers a day, and then I have a cup of coffee or two, and I generally write whatever it is I'm writing. Now, if I'm writing a book, I generally write in the morning, go down to the office in the afternoon, and then come back and write in the evening. If I'm writing a column, after the newspapers, I write my column, and I only spend half a day writing. When I'm working on a book, I spend almost a whole day, and I write 7 days a week because I find it easy to write and fun to write, and if I'm not amusing you people out there, I'm amusing myself, and that's at least one happy client. To people who want to become a writer, I should hope they'd become a reader first, and by becoming a reader first, you'll have something to write about. And if you start as a reader, you're going to continue all your life as a reader because there's plenty to be read. And you have to, in my opinion, you have to read and have something to say before you say it. Unfortunately, in the age of the blogosphere, no one that blogs seems to read. And as a consequence, the blogosphere is another word for a very polluted atmosphere, and it's polluted by error. When I was young, everybody who wanted to be a writer, I think, wanted to write like Fitzgerald or Hemingway or Faulkner. So I wanted to be a literary writer, and of course my friend Steve Tessich and various other of my friends did become literary writers. But I found myself drawn increasingly into politics and to the battle for freedom, and I'm glad I did. And I think a lot of readers are I don't think that they'd have gotten a great kick out of my literary writing, but I hope they've gotten some instruction and pleasure out of my political musings.